First of all, congratulations on the book. It really is wonderful, and want to share the ideas with everybody. I just want to start with a fairly straightforward question. Puck, you go first. Why'd you write this book?
Because he told me to. It was his idea.
Next.
So, I guess just to get the ideas out there. For me, coming from military, I mean that we don't write books. We write if you can't write something in one page, it's not worth writing. But I think the ideas were important enough, particularly from my perspective. Doing strategy, I think is important. Doing strategy on Special Operations Command, the guidance that we got down there was figure out how to get out in front of the sound of the guns. This was 2007, 6 years into the global war on terror. While Marines, we love to go out and fight. I mean, that's why God made the Marine Corps, and then the Army, Navy, Air Force, they get to support us, and they do a hell of a job doing it too. But, that's not going to get us, our nation, to where it needs to be. And so that was pretty interesting guidance. And then getting pulled up to the Pentagon in 2009 and having somebody like Admiral Mike Mullen, by the way, love the guy. If you want to ever see somebody that gets up every morning to do the right thing, go talk to Mike Mullen. But his just intense sense of loyalty, his moral fiber, and when he looked out at the world and seeing that, where the hell is this country going? What the hell are we fighting for? Looking at any trend line, he just didn't see the country going in a positive direction. He wasn't seeing any kind of guidance coming from whether it was President Bush or President Obama. And I don't want to put out their names, but just the administrations. Things were not coming out of the civilian leadership. And that sense of duty to try to figure out a different direction for the country was critical. And when I retired in 2011, just to get back finally to your question, why did I write the book? Because nobody ever said your oath to the Constitution. Nobody ever said, okay, you're done with that now. And just looking out of the country, I think we have an idea. This idea that sustainability, more than stinking recycling, more than the green movement, more than the environmental side of it, that this is an organizing logic, not only for a nation, but for neighborhoods, for our individual lives, for all your stinking businesses that you're doing. If we don't go in that direction, my 16-year-old boy is screwed at scale. And it's not all about me, but it kind of is, because he's the one thing that I'm most focused on. And I believe that the United States, time has come to step into the 21st century and lead not by what we say, but by what we do. And that's not going to come from Washington. And that's why I think it was important to write the book, particularly in our timing with this zany election that's going on, and show that Americans that we've got a different frickin' way forward, period. And sustainability's it, and don't wait on Washington. Step into the fight and start punching above your weight. So I don't know if that answered your question. That felt really good to say.
I think you just got your answer. Was there a light bulb moment for you? So very compelling case about the need for a strategy. Was there a light bulb moment for you where you started to connect the dots in terms of global, as you talk about in the book, global unsustainability as the organizing principle?
Yes, so that was at Special Ops Command when Admiral Eric Olson, the commander of Special Ops, Navy SEAL, said, figure out how to get in front of the sound of the guns. And that was a real epiphany. I didn't even know about the word sustainability. I stumbled onto it, started studying urban design, regenerative agriculture, things like that, female health and education as catalytic things to try to shape the security environment so we didn't have to go fight. That was catalytic, and all of a sudden, sustainability, it just coalesced in my brain that, man, that is a powerful systems-based logic, again, for a nation, for a neighborhood. It works. The logic is fractal, and it's powerful if we take it on from a pragmatic, non-ideological perspective. That was a real eye-opener. And from there, it just, we organized a strategy for special operations around that concept, and then all of a sudden, we're sitting up in the five-sided puzzle palace in D.C., told to figure it out for the nation. It's that simple.
Great. Joel, to the best of my knowledge, you haven't served in the military, so what was your path to the book?
Well, I met this guy on stage, actually, at one of our events in 2013, and I knew a little bit about him. We had spent a half an hour, one-on-one talking about this, and at the end of this half hour, the story that unfolded was about this 28-year veteran Marine who had been called up by the Admiral, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, to figure out a narrative for America's future, because as Admiral Mullen told us, he said, I didn't know what we were fighting for, and how they came to sustainability and realized if you map that or combine that with dusting off a thing called grand strategy, which is something that America has done at various times in its future to take on the big existential challenges of the day, that there was an amazing opportunity here, an economic opportunity led by business, for profit, Washington, with or without Washington's leadership or money. And I said, this is, you're talking my language here, but equally important, or maybe even more so for me, is that it put sustainability on a par with prosperity and security. Now, we've been in this space for a long time. And as we know, and most of us know, that sustainability tends to get marginalized, not just within our organizations, but in society. It's this do-good thing. It's this environmental thing. It's this, it's okay. It's something we need to do or should do, or it's nice to do, depending on who you know. Now it's a strategic imperative. And the other piece that I've been talking for a long time, sort of ranting to some extent, about the fact that we don't have any leaders, business leaders, cultural leaders, political leaders, who can tell a compelling story of what happens if we get things right. Sort of odd. We know what happens if we get things wrong. Thank you, Al Gore. Thank you, Bill McKibben. Thank you, Rachel Carr. Thank you. But we don't have that, haven't had that positive, inspiring story about job creation, economic development, food security, water security, housing security, energy security, national security, community and regional resilience, on and on, the things that we all know and are needed and are very much part of sustainability. In fact, we sort of talk now about full spectrum sustainability, which is around communities and a lot of things. It really is, in some ways, just what sustainability should be. So, it was such a compelling idea that I felt that we needed to take this along with Patrick Doherty, our third author. And the last piece is it's sort of a remarkable story of, just if you take the two of us, of how we came to this from very, very different worlds. Here you've got, from rural Minnesota, in the San Francisco Bay Area. He went to the Naval Academy. I went to Berkeley. He was served in the Navy and then the Marines, served in the military for almost 3 decades. I was an anti-war protester, registered with the Selective Service as a conscientious objector.
I still love you.
And writing about sustainability, basically what you have here is the jarhead and the pothead, right? And yet we came to the exact same place, which is that sustainability makes sense as this organizing logic for a new American economy.
And great story. And it's interesting you use the word security several times, because security is a word that everyone understands. As you say, sustainability is not a word that everyone understands, that everyone embraces.
But talk about how you defined sustainability, because it's not necessarily the way that we all think about it.
And that was my next question anyway.
Well, geez.
All right, I can't help myself.
You guys share the same brain.
It's a recovering moderator.
Yeah. I'm getting nervous up here. Sustainability. I guess that's approaching it from a Marine's perspective. Maybe I just wasn't encumbered by what sustainability had, the way it was defined. Triple bottom line, and let's get a recycling program. Let's bike share. Let's go. It's like, well, holy shit, it's a bigger idea. Oh, I swore, didn't I? I told him I wouldn't swear.
But you used the word bike also. So
it balances out. Exactly.
It balances out. So thanks. But we went when I was we were figuring this stuff out. Went to science. Because when we were looking at the global strategic environment, we just recognized it doesn't operate the way it was in the Cold War. Cold War was more kind of a closed system thing. You could push on certain things to a deterministic end. You had the West, you had the East, and bang, bang. It was pretty easy calculus. It was binary. But the 21st century sure as hell doesn't operate that way. It operates along the lines of an open system. And that was a big epiphany to us, because then, for me and Wayne Porter, when we were working for Admiral Mullen, because then we started looking at the world as an ecology. Go figure. God, isn't that a crazy thing? This global strategic ecology. And so we're really looking for this idea what is this idea that we can approach the world with? And sustainability was it, simply because the scientific definition, the ecological, at least the one that we used, was an organism's ability to remain diverse and productive over time. Now, when I was in the Pentagon, everyone was, okay, you guys are doing grand strategy? Okay, who's the threat? It's China. It's got to be, Iran. Who the hell are we going to fight? And our point was, if you're a great nation, you don't need to have an enemy to do stuff. You just need to have interest. And right now, we were not, even today, because we're so manically focused on threat and risk, we are not addressing our enduring national interests of prosperity and security. We're actually expending our prosperity in pursuit of security that's mostly defined on our past, not our frickin' 21st century reality. And that scares the hell out of me. And so back to Joel's point, with the definition we use, an organism's ability to remain diverse and productive over time. Well, diversity is depth, it's redundancy, it's resilience. So we say it's our national capacity to take a gut punch and come back swinging. I mean, that is national security, 21st century style. Yes, you need weirdos like me with funny tree green suits. You go over and you headbutt people into submission. There's bad people in the world. It's fun. We get it done, and it's great. Best military in the world, all right? Proud of that. But that is not the path forward for this frickin' country, and it's not security. And I'm here to tell you, I don't want to shock anybody, but there's not enough bubble wrap in all the world to wrap around each one of your heads to keep you safe. Get over it, all right? And I don't care if it's a hurricane, I don't care if it's Al-Qaeda, you're gonna skin your knee. So toughen up, all right? The second part, though, and this goes back to Annie's bit, was organism's ability to remain diverse and productive. Productivity means growth, right? But what kind of freaking growth do you want? The GDP, the measurements of GDP. I mean, I love that chart. By the way, I'm gonna steal that. I took a picture of it, and so hope there wasn't a TM on it. But that's absolutely perfect. Because growth, we were so focused on GDP. We're so focused on the number. Well, GDP was a metric that came out of the freaking Great Depression. Why are we still measuring our economy based on one of the worst cataclysmic economic times in this nation's history? It's stupid. Why are we not measuring growth in qualitative terms, given all the factors that were just presented, but also the thing that 1/3 of our nation's clinically obese? You know that your average American stands a 1 in 20 million chance of dying in a terrorist-related cause? 1 in 20 million? Yet your average American stands a 1 in 5 chance of dying from an obesity-related cause? What the shit are we doing? So it's the qualitative measures. I mean, we could learn a big lesson from a little country named Bhutan, all right? Gross national happiness. Maybe we ought to start measuring that and define our growth based on that. So again, I don't know if that answered the question. That
I didn't ask the question.
No. Well, it was passionate, and and you got a lot of applause. Yeah. I think again you answered the question.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah. All right. Let's get down to some specifics here. So you define 4 elements that you talk about in terms of defining what sustainability ought to look like. Let's focus on that for a minute. Because I think the interlocking nature of them is really interesting.
Oh, you're talking about the existential challenge that we talked.
Yeah.
So we talked. This is about a new grand strategy, and the grand strategy is the alignment of foreign policy with the economic engine and governing institutions to take on the big challenges of the day. And we go the whole history of how we use this in the run-up to World War II, led by business, by a guy named Bill Knudsen, who was the president of General Motors, who was tapped by FDR to marshal the private sector to create what turned out to be the great war machine we were producing by the end of the war, from an economy that basically had no real economic demand to a country that was producing 70% of all the material for all the Allied forces. And then during the Cold War, how we, again, used grand strategy. But we haven't had a new grand strategy since they last lowered the hammer and sickle on the Kremlin on Christmas Day 1991. And so we're still playing off that old playbook. And so what is the existential challenge of the day? And we say, well, it's global unsustainability. And your question is 4 main points. One is rapid economic inclusion of 3 billion people. I mean, this is all stuff we talk about here at BSR and so many in the sustainability community. Rapid economic inclusion, the ecological depletion, climate change, the loss of fisheries and forests and topsoil and all of that. The resilience deficit of our infrastructures and supply chain, and then the fact that the major economies of the world, in Europe, China, certainly here, they're all propped up by monetary policy, not by demand. So taking that problem statement, and by the way, is this classic wicked problem where you can't just solve one of them, you have to solve them all at the same time. how do we leverage what we learned about grand strategy to take on these problems? And so, what is the way we do that? And again, without, necessarily a big government program. So the idea is, there's a formula that we lay out. It's demand plus capital minus stranded assets equals a new economic opportunity. And so what's the demand? Three big pools of demand are walkable communities, regenerative agriculture, and resource productivity. I'm gonna have to repeat that just because this sort of began at the Pentagon. And so it's really like, really that's how this, walkable communities, regenerative ag, and resource productivity, and the $1 trillion annual opportunity, business-led, for-profit opportunity that falls out of that is what we sort of get through in the book, and then how do we pay for it, who leads it, and all of that.
Great. So I think probably most of the people in this room will embrace what you're talking about. Tell me, and Puck, maybe starting with you, how have these ideas and now the book been received?
I think they've been received well. The ideas actually have been received well since developing them in 2009. In DC, they were well received, just nobody knew what the hell to do with them. And now doing the work that we've been doing, the book coming out, I think the response has been, holy cow, this is possible. I mean, this is purely pragmatic. What are the market forces at play? Because when we're going to do grand strategy, you gotta start with the economy. You don't start with the military. And grand strategy had nothing to do with the military. I mean, the military is part of it, but grand strategy is about what direction this country is going to go, and it always starts with the economy. Just like Joel said, we were the arsenal democracy in World War II, and the Cold War was really a contest of political economic systems. We focused on the economics, got that solid foundation. Nobody knew that better than Eisenhower. I mean, that's what he focused on. It was crazy. He said, get out of Korea, let's stop with the fighting, let's get on with the economic.
Military
Politician, yeah. Maybe figure this stuff out. And so what Joel's describing about these market forces, just to boil it down from a grand strategic perspective, is we focus in our economy, but we focus in that our smart growth at home becomes our smart power abroad. We right now, whether it's China, they're mucking around the Spratly Islands. Okay, let's go get crazy about that. Well, what we all really ought to be focusing on, where do our interests converge? Rather than focus on the conflicting interests, where do they converge? And they categorically across the world, because of this global unsustainability issue, the rates of urbanization, demographic trends, China alone has to put 292 million people in the urban environment in the next 20 years. How the hell are they going to do that? They don't have the water, they don't have the energy, they don't have the material resources, they can't produce the food. How are they going to do that? We can't allow them to fail, because they fail, we fail. That's the nature of the world. And so sustainability, this converging interest idea, is really quite powerful. And so that's why we focus in on those three main things, walkable communities. We have this demographic trend. We have 60% of Americans seek the attributes of smart growth, walkable communities, in the next housing purchase. Baby boomers, millennials converging in the marketplace. That's 3 times the level of demand for housing than what we experienced post-World War II with the returning GIs. And post-World War II, that demand for suburban sprawl housing fueled our economy through the late 70s, early 80s. This is truly historic. Regenerative agriculture is not just hippies, dabbling in the dirt, doing organic farming. And we're talking about high technology. We're talking about controlled environment ag. We're talking about mariculture, aquaculture, urban ag, all these technologies that currently exist that we're just not taking to scale. And it's a huge opportunity, particularly, I look at it from 2 perspectives. Number one, our primary population is aging out. 59-year-old average is the age of your average farmer, all right? If we want to really create new jobs that are meaningful and long-term, I'm pretty sure that technology, and automation isn't going to obviate the need for people to put frickin' food in their face. People have to eat, right? So there's jobs out there. And particularly in the types of environment we have, huge opportunity for a whole new generation of farmer entrepreneurs. But the cool thing is that we can also make a big buck doing it. Regenerative agriculture techniques, equivalent yields, but 3 times the level of profits versus our industrial ag model, according to Rodale Institute. Huge opportunity, particularly on the global scale. And the last thing around that productivity revolution. Huge market out there for renewable energy, for advanced materials. And I just want to throw advanced materials, I just want to throw this one out there. Can they're supposed to be thinking bold. Just imagine if oil is the answer to climate change, right? We talk about a feedstock shift, but we have the capacity to take that beautiful molecule, hydrocarbon molecule, get it out of, we throw all the value up the smokestack. It's bullshit. It's the most inefficient way of using that molecule. We can move those into materials and fundamentally rebuild We have to build all this stuff. China's got those 292 million people looking for a home. Use the hydrocarbon molecule to build with.
And that solves some of the stranded asset issue, where this unburnable carbon. Well, it may be unburnable, but we still take it out of the ground. Are we already use 19% of what we take out of the ground for building, for chemicals, for building materials? 19%. Yeah. So it's 80-20 basically. How do we flip that? How do we get to 100% where we're not sending this incredible value up the smokestack? You mentioned how is this being received, and it's been really interesting. So if you look at sort of the three basic audiences the Washington establishment, I mean, they're like, this doesn't track. I mean, it's cute, it's an interesting idea, but this is not the way the world works in Washington anymore, which is why the book is basically focused on not waiting on Washington. The media is just, we don't know what to do with this. This has been very challenging. There's been a lot of other things in the news. The book came out right at the time of Brexit, and then we had Dallas, and we've had a whole series of things, and then, there's this election, which has sucked up a lot of the oxygen, and they don't really quite get it. This is, we've looked at this book as the adult conversation about America's future that we should be having this year, and that hasn't, maybe on November 9th, we'll have a different, maybe on November 9th or sometime we'll have a different conversation, but the business community gets it. And the response has been incredible. The number of people who have, who've read it and said, I'm, buying 10 or 100 and, sending this to my team and whatever. I think they see the opportunity here because this is, it's nonpartisan. It's actually what I liked about this, one of the many things is that it's the best of the sort of progressive agenda around environment and taking care of people and all that, with a sort of the best of the conservative economic approach, which is, again, buy business for profit with or without government. And the heroes in this are not national politicians, they're local politicians and business leaders, and how that bottom up and somewhat top down come together to address the walkable communities, regenerative ag, and resource revolution. That's where it's exciting. And the stories we tell about how that's already taking shape, I think, for me, I mean, we all sort of know this intuitively. We, hear about some of these things, but to actually go out and see how it's taking shape in Detroit or in Cleveland or in cities all across America is really incredibly uplifting and inspiring.
Can I just add
and just before you do, we're going to take questions in just seconds, so feel free to tweet them or get ready to stand up and we'll get a mic your way. Go for it.
And I guess finally to answer your question, the thing that's most important to me is how just regular ham and egger Americans respond to it. And it's been good, whether they're politically to the right, politically to the left, doesn't matter because of the innate pragmatism of it. But the thing that I guess I've observed is that we talk a lot about innovation. Innovation is great. You got to have innovation. We innovate in technology, but we do need innovation. Don't get me wrong. But that's just the here and now. I mean, that's just the here. What I'm really getting a sense from just going out and talking about the book and just doing the work that we do is Americans are really seeking this constancy of purpose. I mean, what the heck is our cause? Why are we this country? Where are we going? And what are we doing? And how can I contribute? I want to. I'm just not getting the chance. Well, you know what? Here's a permission slip for everybody. You get to contribute. I don't give a shit what happens next week. It doesn't matter. Do you think anything's going to come out of it? No. It's going to be the same. So everyone said, what's going to happen November 9th? Nothing. Okay? So step up. I mean, you guys are in the world of where you get to be bold, you get to do all those things, you get to think big and do big. Because you're in the business community, you're the only ones that have the capacity right now. Like Joel said, at the lower level of government, that's great. But holy shit, step into the fight, jump in the ring and start swinging. All right? So there you go.
Excellent. Step into the ring and ask a question. Who's got a question out there? All right, while you're thinking, a hero of your book is Bill Knudsen. You mentioned him, Joel. He was the president of General Motors. He came basically to get the war machine going. Big difference. There was a clear and present threat. There was an easily identifiable challenge and an existential one. And it's very interesting, Puck, because in some ways I think what you said is we have met the enemy and it is us, so we're the enemy. And you also said the country that people often think is the biggest strategic adversary, China, we actually have a common interest and common destiny. So that flips the very conception of what the challenge is and who we need to be working with differently. What will it take to have business leaders, and many are, to be sure, but where are the Bill Knudsen's of today? What will cause more business leaders to step up, embrace this vision, and make it a reality?
I don't know. I don't know. I
now
think
you have an answer to question for the first time.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what it's going to take. What I think we're betting on is that the market forces are there, the capital is there. I mean, the consumer demand is clearly there. If you can't get your brain around the scale of climate change and that the wheels are falling off the cart of the system, whatever that system is, maybe those market forces are going to be the draw. But I think you see plenty of leadership. People are talking about it. I just don't think you're seeing them jump in at the scale that Bill Knudsen did, or that Joe Kennedy being the head of the first SEC, believe it or not, or Jesse Jones coming out of Texas in 1933 to take over the Reconstruction Finance Corporation and really start shooting capital in to save the banking system, so capital get out there and get the economy going. These were all private sector people that had wanted nothing to do with FDR and his programs, but they recognized that it was in their capacity, it was in their interests, but also it was their duty as Americans. I don't know what it's going to take to get there. I'm hoping it's the market forces.
Yeah.
Joel?
I don't think it's going to be a big visionary person who comes in under the name of patriotism, as Bill Knudsen, when he was again tapped by FDR in 1940 to take on this production machine and create this production machine, bringing together other business leaders, labor leaders, and others. I think it's going to be the market opportunity of seeing what's possible when you bring transit, light rail to a community and can build out from that the closer in housing and the mortgage and the resource and energy efficient mortgages that come out of. That's what Puck and Patrick are now doing with Long Haul Capital Fund. It's an interesting exercise. I'm having fun playing with them on that. But there's and other business leaders who are going to see that there's an opportunity here, and through that understand, sort of one of the things that I came to in this is just really appreciation for what does it mean to be prosperous? What does it mean to be secure? And of course, what does it mean to be sustainable? And how those three knit together and so inextricably linked. I think that the business logic for creating products and services that bring those three things together, and it's the old people, planet, profits. It's not new concept. This is old stuff to so many of us. But at the macroeconomic scale, but coming from the bottom up. Because what's very encouraging is discouraging as things are nationally. What's very encouraging is what's happening locally. I would maybe talk a little bit about what you're seeing in Cleveland, for example, the work you're doing there.
Well, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, writing a book and talking about big ideas, and I guess you get a certain amount of juice out of that, but you got to, I'm still a Marine at heart, and you got to go where the meat meets the metal and get shit done. So in Cleveland, we're taking sustainability and slapping it down in one of the more underserved communities. Not because it's not something we're going to be doing for anybody or to anybody. We're just putting sustainability as an economic organizing logic for a community. It's called Glenville. Predominantly African Americans. It's a classic story of an urban landscape across the Rust Belt. Predominantly African American. High unemployment rate, poverty rate, et cetera. But we're just trying to create an environment of opportunity. And we're using market forces. So we're not looking at can you do low-income housing, tax credits, and doing all that kind of stuff. We're saying no. Sustainability, 15 years. This community is going to fundamentally look different, and we're going to do it in a way that doesn't gentrify, because we create that environment opportunity around sustainability, around food, energy, water, built environment, transportation, transit-oriented development. How do you create those communities that create a healthy place? And the cool thing is, it's just like cats and dogs living together. The city of Cleveland and Cuyahoga County coming together, man, that never happens. It's happening. Private sector coming together, all the different foundations coming together around this one idea, just to prototype it and get something done. That is cool. And that's happening all across the country. Those little things. And those are the things that we need to stand on, and we need to all engage in looking for those opportunities. There's money to be made, but there's also impact that you can have well above what we currently think can be possible. It's cool. It's exciting. And I love it. I do.
Let me see if there's one question
in the
out
middle
there.
here.
Yes.
Chris Wolf with CARE. Thank you so much for sharing brilliant thoughts. I want to ask you about how would you recommend this group communicate with the business leaders, employees, the ham and eggers, in ways that don't devolve to the partisanship, and particularly when people don't want to hear about the VUCA world, or I would rather have bubble wrap and just tell me my old safe binary world. How would you suggest helping to draw people in, our leaders and the people that work with us, and our constituents and stakeholders in this complex world?
It's a great question, and we're about out of time, so I just say let's take this as the final question. I think it's a great wrap-up question.
I would, again, talk about, replace the word sustainability, just because it's got, I don't know, I always say, just call it a kumquat, whatever. If that, sustainability frickin', gets people amped up and they automatically put it on the green side. But I'm just talking again about the economic logic. And just, the way I talk, particularly, I live in Beaver, South Carolina, very conservative place. They don't buy into climate change, a lot of stuff. But I said, okay, what kind of community do you want? Ask them to describe what kind of community do they want? What kind of world do they want for their kids? And they are going to start speaking in the language of sustainability. They will, I guarantee you. I always go right there. Yeah. What do you want to see? What do you want to see for your kids? And guess what? I never use the word sustainability. I say, okay, would this work? Yeah, I think I like that. Food right there, sure, shit, I love that stuff. Market opportunity, yeah, I want that stuff too. That's the way I would approach it, and just get over the baggage of sustainability.
A great example of that is Greensburg, Kansas, when they was knocked down by a hurricane, I think in 2007. Whole town. Tornado, thank you. Yeah. And FEMA came in and they brought in a group of architects, and they didn't even have a place to meet. They erected an old circus tent just to bring the town together. The whole town was knocked down, and they said, "What do you want to build?" And this is middle of conservative Kansas, and what they came up with was through around green space and renewably powered, and place where kids would come back after they graduated school and want to live again instead of just leaving, and on and on. And what they created was the city that has the highest per capita of LEED Platinum buildings, powered ironically because of the tornado, now 100% by wind. And they've created a sustainable community. They would never call it that. And I think that's what's so inspiring about all this, is that we know how to, we have the answers. The answers are all around us. We're almost drowning in answers, solutions and examples of what's possible here. And we may be messaging it wrong, using the S word. I agree. My whole career is based around that word, and it's probably not the best one. But people, we're playing into, I think, exactly what people want, and bringing that in, the patriotism about America. You can tap into that. I am not a natural-born patriot. I love this country, but I don't, rah-rah. And it gave me this incredible sense of what's possible and what we've done. Last thing is that we know how to do this. This being addressing all of this big wicked problem. We've done this before as a nation. We have the willpower. We know we have the answers. We have this this great talent and people who have inspired us in the past. This great history. That's what it's really all about. We just need some willpower. We need leadership. And the only ones who can do it is the business community. It's very clear, and that's what we really laid out in the book, is how this happens and how the business community takes the lead.
This is a very dangerous idea, because a lot of people are using write-in ballots this year. So I just want the two of you to be ready for whatever might happen on Tuesday. This is fantastic. Thank you very much. What I find really interesting, apart from the essence of the ideas, is conceptually, it is a grand strategy. It's a big idea. It answers global questions of global significance, and it's bottom-up solutions. And I think that is how the 21st century needs to work. You're really onto something. Let's go out and have the best kumquats we can possibly find. And I please join me in thanking Puck and Joel for some great ideas. Thank you. It's really good.